Child care provider June 2 is suing ex-client Pat Meyer for unpaid babysitting fees and defamation of character. Pat claims June is running an unsafe daycare.
All rise. Yes, case number 100 on the calendar in the matter of Chu versus Meyer. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Ms. Chu, you provided daycare for Miss Meyer's baby, child, toddler?
Yes, 4 years old at the time.
And it is your claim that she owes you some money. She owes you some money for daycare that you actually provided.
Right.
And then punitive damages because you claim that she defamed you. When, after you sued her for the money that she owed you in small claims court, she called the state and reported that your daycare facility was substandard.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the case is about. And Ms. Meyer says she had every right to call the state with regard to the unsanitary and unsafe conditions in your house, because that's why she removed her child from your daycare facility, and she doesn't owe you anything.
Yes.
When did you bring your 4-year-old to Miss Chu to babysit?
January 17th.
Of
2005, yes, ma'am.
And how did you find her?
A co-worker of mine had her child in her care.
And she was satisfied?
Well, she worked late hours and she didn't have no other choice, ma'am.
Well, you wouldn't have put your child in a daycare facility unless you said to this co-worker of yours, are you satisfied?
Quite honestly, I was desperate to find a daycare. I just started at my job in the beginning of December, and I needed to have daycare. Since I just started, I was not financially free to pay $450 up front for other daycares.
So?
So I talked to her, and she said, well, go ahead and try it. Mrs. Chu talked to me. She said, right now I'm kind of full. I have too many children, but it's okay. I can take him. It's okay. I got myself in trouble before.
How many children did she have at the time?
I'm not sure. Like
You
I said,
didn't ask?
I wasn't in the daycare facility.
What do you mean you weren't in the facility?
We just kind of met at a stable and talked about stuff like this.
You met where?
At a stable. I was going to buy her horse. That's how we met initially.
I thought you met initially through a coworker.
Yes, ma'am. The co-worker has a horse, Miss Chu has a horse, and I wanted to purchase a horse. Her
You
horse
wanted
was
to
for
buy
sale.
a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't have $450 to pay up front for a daycare, and you wanted to buy a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain that to me.
I was looking into buying a horse.
For what?
To ride, ma'am.
Keep going.
Like I said, I went to look for daycare.
No, last time you spoke to me, you were looking for a horse.
Yes, ma'am.
And
From
you
there
met her
we
at a
talked.
stable. And you hadn't been to the daycare facility yet. Stop
No,
playing
ma'am.
around with your hair.
I called her on a Saturday. I said, you know, I know you have a daycare. Is it possible for Jason to attend your daycare? She said, come on by on Monday. I went there, dropped him off.
Who would babysat for your son when you started working?
His godmother.
Well, what happened to her babysitting?
She had another job coming up that she was working, and she said she can't do it no more.
So you found her and you dropped him off without ever having seen the inside of the facility?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a husband?
Yes, ma'am.
What does he do for a living?
He's working in retail.
Did you end up buying her horse?
No, ma'am.
You have a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you buy it?
Late February.
How much did you pay for it?
$600.
Where do you keep it?
Sally Hill.
At a stable?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much do you pay to board the horse at the stable?
$225.
A month?
Yes, ma'am.
You got your priorities a little bit backwards, Miss Mayer. You got your priorities backwards. Before you take a horse, you find an appropriate daycare for your child. Not one where you don't have to pay up front. Because according to the figures that you just gave me, you had $600 to buy a horse and $225 to board the horse, and you didn't have $450 to pay for what you might consider an appropriate daycare up front. You have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
2.
How old are they?
15 and 10.
So you got a lot of extra money. Must have a lot of extra money if you have a horse. Oy. Now, I'm not getting into how many children you're licensed for. I'm not getting into any of that. Just tell me, how long have you been a daycare provider?
7 years.
When did she first bring her son into your daycare?
In January.
And how long did you take care of him?
She had him out for a week and Good Friday. And then she brought him back, and it was April 4th, and he was in my home April 4th and April 5th. And on April 5th, that was the last day that she brought him. So,
how much did she owe you when she took her son out on the 5th?
She owed me for the 28th week, and then she also owed me for that week that he was in my care, but she took him out.
Okay, let me see the contract that you signed. And it's $85 a week.
Yes, ma'am.
So she owes you, according to you, for 2 weeks.
She owes me for 2 weeks and then a 2 weeks notice, which is also in the contract because she quit without any kind of notice to me. She sent me a letter on 4/6 by certified mail saying, thank you for your services. Basically, I don't need you anymore.
Can I see the letter she
Sure.
sent?
And then I returned with another letter to her explaining what I was expecting of her at that time. And in all honesty, Judge, I wasn't going to do another thing with her because when you're a daycare, you are...
Right. I got it. But then she went and filed a complaint.
Right. And I've been in business a long time, and I am inspected by the state and the health department 6 months every year, and they have never had a problem with my home.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She was with me 5 months, or 4 months after that.
No, she wasn't.
Well-
Listen to me.
Okay.
Don't be a fast talker. I don't like fast talkers.
And later today,
How old are you, Mr. Inwood?
I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
And how old are you, Miss Murray?
I'm 25.
Okay.
You got to find friends your own age.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Child care provider June 2 says ex-client Pat Meyer owes for daycare fees and defamation of character as a result of filing false charges with the state. Pat claims June's parrot bit her son.
Go ahead.
Okay, the reason why we pulled Jason out of her care was because her macaw parrot bit Jason. He had the chance to walk across the dining room table, walk up his arm, and bite him because he wouldn't let go of his pretzel. I've got the pictures for it.
Okay.
And another child also bit him in the arm, and we just had enough.
When was the parrot bite?
6 months prior.
Just a second.
Oh.
When was the parrot bite?
It happened in March.
And what about the bite from the child?
The bite happened on the 5th of April. That's where we pulled him out.
Tell me about the bite.
The bite from the child?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and let me just notate, the bite from the bird was not a bite, and he was not on my dining room table.
I don't care where he was. Shouldn't have been around children.
But
Shouldn't have been around children.
okay, well, I'll agree with that.
Good.
Okay. As far as the bite from the child,
But that didn't precipitate her removing the child from your care.
right?
'Cause
She
if
was
the-
with me 5 months or 4 months after that.
No, she wasn't.
Well-
Listen to me.
Okay.
Don't be a fast talker. I don't like fast talkers. Child started with you in January, February, and March.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 months.
Correct.
So don't say it was 6 months before, because 6 months the child wasn't in your care.
That's true, but
Okay. But she still brought the child back after the incident with the bird, but did not want to return with the child almost immediately after the bite.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll explain that too.
Go ahead.
Okay. JJ was in my home, and that is why I brought my daughter today, because she's a witness to his behavior. And I have a little boy who is hearing impaired. And when the little boy came into the house that day, JJ immediately knocked him down. I mean, just pushed him down for no reason. I have basically 2 rooms, and each go into each other. And the next thing I know, the little boy who is hearing impaired comes running out of that room again because JJ pushed him down again. She didn't also tell you the story that her child punched that little boy in the face.
That day, on the 4th,
Yes, 5th.
on the 5th, the little boy retaliated by biting him.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what
Where
happened.
were you?
I was standing right there. And next thing I know, her son punches, and he grabs his arm and bites him that quick. I mean, it happens so very quick.
Okay, fine. Now, mother, she's upset. Child was bitten by another child. Pulls the child out. Fine. You called the authorities?
I made
You called the authorities?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I don't remember. I really don't. Maybe 2 weeks afterwards.
Why?
Because I don't feel that she's taken the care that she should by the daycare that she has for the
Well,
children.
why didn't you call the authorities the next day?
I took the day off Wednesday to find a new daycare, and
That doesn't answer my question.
I just didn't have the time.
Well, what
working-
inspired you to call 2 weeks later? When did you receive the small claims summons that she filed against you? All that's documented, so
Yes,
you might as well...
I don't know the date.
But the phone call that you made to the authorities was after that.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
Now I'd like to see the report from the authorities when they came to do the inspection.
The first one's the dog catcher report, and the second one is the health inspector.
Who's taking care of your son now?
He's at home with his siblings and Mrs. Oliver again.
What did you do between the 6th of April and the 27th of May?
Oh, I'm sorry. He was in koala daycare.
How much did they charge you?
$95 a week.
And if you were unhappy with this Tuesday daycare, you could have put him in for an extra $10 a week to this other daycare.
I wasn't aware of that daycare at that time.
You should have been. If you spent a little more time choosing an appropriate daycare rather than shopping around for a horse, you could have been aware of the best daycare in your vicinity. I have, very little patience for somebody who spends any extra time on anything else when they have 3 children looking for quality daycare, which should be your first priority. First, not third, not second.
At that time, I was thinking I was doing the best I could by giving
You
him
don't
a
tell
home
me the
daycare.
best you could. The best you could is, you just told me that everybody else wanted up front $450, and she didn't, so you chose her. And yet at the same time, you were looking for a horse, and you bought a horse for $600.
Yes, ma'am.
Same month.
No, ma'am, it was the end of February.
A month later.
Yes, ma'am.
She owes you $340 for the daycare.
Yes, ma'am.
She also owes you $300 because I believe she filed this in retaliation and nothing more for your filing a small claim summons against her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When I turned around to put his jacket on, I noticed the injury on his neck, and I asked her what happened. And next thing, she pulls out this huge bird that's almost taller than my child.
My parrot is not as big as her child. And not only that, I've had kids that I've had since they were 5 months old and still have, and they're 4 years old.
Obviously, I made a mistake, and I will never do that again.
Truth does tell. She'd rather spend money on her horse than her child.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of English versus Murray. Step forward, please.
Bartender Dana English is suing his former friend, 25-year-old bartender Lara Murray, for a series of unpaid loans. Dana claims Lara used him.
Mr. English, you claim a series of loans to the defendant who was a friend of yours.
Yes.
Ms. Murray says that you were a kind friend. You gave her money. That's exactly what you did. You gave her money, and everything that you gave her were gifts. There was never any intention for her to repay those gifts, and it only became a problem when she rebuffed your romantic intentions.
No.
Okay. How old are you, Mr. English?
I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
And how old are you, Miss Murray?
I'm 25.
Okay. Me-
You got to find friends your own age, Mr. English. Then this sort of thing doesn't happen. According to what I read in your complaint, you hired Miss Murray to work as a hostess in a restaurant that you manage.
She was hired at the restaurant I worked at, yes.
When?
October
Of what year?
2003.
When was the first loan you made her?
The insurance payment of October of 04,
How much?
$120.
And what was the arrangement, according to you, for repayment of that loan?
Lara said she would repay me the money because she didn't have it. She wasn't working that much.
So she said eventually she'll pay
Yes.
you back. When was the next loan?
It was for December, also a car insurance payment of $120.
December of 2004.
Yes.
Between October and December, had she paid you any money back of the first loan?
No.
When was the next loan?
The next loan was a car company called about the loan for her car. They didn't say it was her car. It was a $300 payment that I made, put the account number on it, and it was for her car, not mine. When I told Lara about this, she said she would repay me the $300.
Just a minute. So you made a car payment and they put it in the wrong account?
Yes. It
Oh.
had her account number on it, not mine, on the check.
How did you have her account number?
Because I said the loan company called me and told me she was behind on her
Why would they
car
call you?
payment. Because I had co-signed the loan.
Oh, just when did you co-sign the loan, sir?
That would be in September of 2004. That was the second car I co-signed for her.
When was the first car that you co-signed for her?
May of 2003.
May I say something?
Not yet.
Okay.
What other monies did you loan to her?
Lara came to live with me towards the end of January, and she needed clothes for work. We went out shopping, and I spent $118 on clothes for her to go to work.
Between October of 2004, when you gave her the first loan, and January of 2005, when you loaned her money to buy clothes, when she came to live with you, had she paid you back any of the original $120?
No, ma'am.
You get where I'm going, Mr. English?
I was a very good friend, and I got used.
Fine. So what are you doing in court?
Lara told me she'd pay me back. She just then said, I called her, she called me one night and said, sue me, so I sued her.
Now I'll hear you.
Well, I started working at the restaurant in October of 2002. So that's when I met him, and I've been friends with him ever since. I got my car in May of 2003, and I was short some money, and he said that if I needed it, that he could help me out. Anytime he'd buy me Christmas presents, birthday presents,
He's not talking about
cards.
Christmas or birthday presents, Miss Murray.
Oh, I know.
He's talking about cash.
Yeah. Anytime I needed help, that I was saying that I needed help with my family, he was always there. He was always calling me, coming over, helping take my aunt to the grocery store. He doesn't have any other friends. I have a lot of friends, and when I started hanging out with my other friends more and not hanging out with him, his feelings got hurt, and then that's when he would start saying, well, I want this back, or I want to hang out with you at least one day a week. Then it started getting weird, and I started pulling back because I looked to him like a father figure. He is. He's like a father figure.
Why did you move into his house in January?
I only stayed. I was fighting with my family. I didn't move in. I was only there a couple days.
She was there
How
for
long?
approximately 4 to 5 weeks.
No, I don't think
Off and
that's
on,
true.
yes.
Off and on,
But she was there.
not straight.
No.
She went out and would stay away for days at a time and then come back.
Right.
Mr. English, you play around with a baby. This is you get babyish behavior.
Well, when she said she's going to repay me, I expected to be repaid.
Well, Mr. English, I have to determine whether you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid. And when somebody borrows money in October and they don't pay you back, you don't lend them more money in December,
Well, when she keeps
and more, and more money in January. You don't do that because then you don't have an expectation of being paid back. Eventually she'll pay you back if you live that long. Not from this court. You gotta learn, wisen up. She's a baby. She's still out there, you know, growing up. You're all grown up. Fortunately, the whole business cost you $797?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you say, $797. It was a cheap lesson. Is she making car payments?
No.
What happened to the car?
The car was repoed. It's being auctioned off today to make up the money that she owes on the car loans and the car being towed. She totaled the car. She wrecked both cars.
Find a nice contemporary friend. Thank you very much. That's all.
Please excuse me, step out.
To be, Alicia Burton is suing her cousin's friend, 25-year-old Heather Duncan, for causing her and her wedding party to be kicked off an airplane. Alicia claims she had to cancel her wedding.
Now, this is case number 104 on the calendar in the matter of Burton versus Duncan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Burton, you were supposed to be married in Las Vegas. And according to your complaint, the defendant was a guest of a member of your wedding party. You were all supposed to be traveling from one place to another by plane. Where were you coming from?
We came from Flint, Michigan.
And you were going to Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Your complaint alleges that Miss Duncan, while you were waiting for the plane in Michigan, I assume,
In Atlanta.
that was a layover, got drunk. And because she was drunk and unruly, your entire wedding party was thrown off the plane. You missed your wedding. All your deposits were lost. You're still not married, all because of her bad behavior.
That's true.
That's what you allege. Okay, so you hadn't met her before?
No.
Who was she the guest of?
My cousin Tiara.
Is she here today?
Yes, she is.
That's Tiara. Okay, so tell me the story. I'm listening.
We got to Atlanta, and we were going to get on the next plane to get to Las Vegas. AirTran had overbooked each flight 15 to 20 people, so we had to wait for the next flight. That was at 9 o'clock in the morning. The second flight was at 11:25. We're on standby, so we're on a list.
Why were you on standby?
That's the buddy passes, they're standby tickets.
How many buddy passes did you have?
I had, for me and my fiance, I His uncle and aunt and my cousin and her 2 friends.
Where did you get them from?
Ibrahim, a friend of the family.
Ibrahim.
He's
you.
here as a witness, too.
What's your last name, sir?
Abdul Rahim.
Mr. Rahim. Where did you get these buddy passes from?
I work for the airline. We get 6 buddy passes a year. Once Tiara said that she had a cousin going to get married, I tried to help him out. So I got them from 2 other friends that work for AirTran.
So you get 6 per year. How much do you pay for them?
They're $50.
So it's $350.
Yes.
Okay. Sit down. Okay. Go ahead.
So my fiance's uncle and aunt got on the plane. We had to wait for the 7:45 flight. My cousin Tiara and her friends decided to go drinking in the airport. Me and my fiance slept for a while, and then we woke up about 3. We were looking for them, and they were downstairs at a bar. They had already drank a bar tab of $79, and Heather and her friend left with this guy they met at the bar. They got back about 7, and we just made it up there in time to get on the 7:45 plane. The flight attendant said there was 5 seats left, and there was just 5 of us, but she miscounted. There was only 4 seats.
Okay, so there was one person who had to get off.
Yeah, but Miss Duncan was hollering and cursing at her, so she made everybody get off the plane. So we all get off the plane, and Heather's still at the bottom of the ramp arguing with this woman. The lady's closing the door. She's trying to open the door, and we're all walking up the ramp, and she's still down there arguing. So my fiance goes down there and tells her, come on, we have to go because the ramp's closed, and you can feel it pulling back. She takes off walking. We meet back up with her at the baggage claim, and she started cursing at the lady in the baggage claim, telling her that she's never been treated like that before, and she flies here and there. But we're on standby. You can't act a fool when you're on standby because you represent the person that gets you the ticket. So after I filled out my claim, I go outside, step outside for a cigarette. She comes running past me saying, stall the police, they're after me, and takes off. I'm sitting there like, what's going on? So I go back in. They got U.S. Homeland Security there, Atlanta police there, the airport police. They're looking for her. She calls my cousin on the phone telling her she's laying in the back of somebody's truck. And that's where it all went from there. So we had to call the reservations in the morning to see if we can get put on the next flight in the morning to go to Vegas. They canceled our tickets because of her actions. We had to purchase new tickets to go home. It was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah, disaster.
Okay. You remember what happened that day?
I do.
You remember everything that happened that day, Miss Duncan?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you drunk?
We had all been to the bar. We had all
I
been
didn't ask
drinking.
about anybody else. I only asked about you. Were you drunk?
I was not over my limit, no, ma'am.
You think you were able to drive a car?
No, I would not have drove a car, no, ma'am.
Well, then you were drunk. Then you were legally drunk if you would not have driven a car. Did you create a scene on the plane?
I did not.
Tell me what happened on the plane.
Well, we were on standby all day, like she said.
That's right. You were on standby all day, and now you're on, and they tell us one person
Didn't
that
get
they
on
have
the
to get
first
off.
flight. The second flight, 11:30 flight.
Get to the 7:45 flight.
Well, it's very pertinent to the situation because her fiancé was cleared, got off, which made 5 people that now needed to board the last flight.
So there was an extra seat on the 11:30 flight.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
But you wanted to travel with your fiancé.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why didn't somebody else get on that flight?
By then, the ramp, they had unlocked the doors, and once you came out of the door, you could not go back in there after they shut and locked them.
Should have let him go. Then you wouldn't have had trouble, right?
But he came back looking for me.
I got it, Miss Burden. All I'm saying is if he had gone to Vegas, you all would have been in Vegas by that night, right? You know, Miss Drunk Out of Her Mind and all the other people who were drinking would have gotten there. Go ahead.
So the last flight out, 7:45 flight, 4 seats available. She says 4 of us can stay on the flight. 1 person's going to have to stay. Because of all the confusion, we all were turned off that flight. It came down to the last minute. At the door, she's still saying, we have to go. 4 of you can stay on the plane. 1 of you has to go. And all the confusion, we all were escorted off that plane.
Well, the confusion, Miss Burden suggests, is because of your bad behavior.
That is not true.
Were you on the plane?
Yes, ma'am.
Your last name is?
Island.
Tell me about her behavior.
When we got on the plane, we knew that there was 5 seats where there was supposed to be 5 seats available. The lady tells us that there's only 4 seats available. So when I find out there's 4 seats, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off, even though I know that these are my cousins, the whole reason we're going, but there's 4 people that can go, and I knew that I would be able to get there in the morning. So I was like, I can just get off the plane. Heather grabs me and says, no, don't get off the plane. She's still trying to converse with the lady, and there's only 4 seats available. There was no way that there was going to be another seat, and there was another lady. She was trying to get her bags into the overhead compartment, and we're all trying to help her get the bags. Heather tells me to go sit in the lady's seat, and I'm like, why would I sit in her seat? She already has a seat, you know what I'm saying? So that's really what happened on the plane.
Good. You can sit down. You can stand up, sir. Why have you not yet married?
Money-wise, we saved for a whole year to go to Vegas to get married.
Well, what kind of deposits did you have there?
I have receipts for everything that I put a deposit on and paid for. And I have police reports and statements from the Atlanta Police Department and Air
I'd like to see
Airways.
the police report, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, there has to be some punitive action.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well,
of the
I
matter-
don't give a rat's behind what you think.
And later today,
I did not have enough money to pay the
Why
whole
don't you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Alicia Burden claims her cousin's friend, Heather Duncan, caused her and her wedding party to be kicked off an airplane. Alicia says she had to cancel her wedding.
Well, this is a letter from Airways, directed to this gentleman who was employed by them, and it says, this is to notify you that your non-revenue and reduced rate travel privileges have been suspended for 180 days. This action is being taken as a result of an investigation into an incident concerning an individual traveling on your buddy pass under itinerary whatever. The individual in question is Miss Heather Duncan, that would be you, exhibited unprofessional and abusive conduct both towards our passengers and your fellow crew members. And you are responsible for all actions for your guest passenger, and you are responsible for notifying your past traveler of all policy and procedures. Well, you don't have to be notified to how to behave like a human being. They found that your conduct caused him to lose his privileges for 180 days. Can't hold your booze. And then the woman down at the luggage department says that you threw a pen and paper at her. You behaved very badly, Miss Duncan.
We had been at the airport for 13 hours. We were all very frustrated.
Nobody else caused the same kind of scene that you did.
That's right. We were all very frustrated. Everybody was crying. Everybody was cussing. Our luggage was gone. I was the one that had to step up, talk to the lady about the luggage.
No,
I did.
You didn't talk to anybody.
I did.
You
I
were
lost my
screaming
temper.
profanity, and you lost your temper, and you threw a pen at her, and you threw paper at her. But I'm not so sure, Miss Burden, that all of you were thrown off because of her conduct.
Our tickets were canceled because of her.
You mean your buddy pass tickets? So if you wanted to go to Vegas, you would have had to buy a ticket, purchase a ticket. Why didn't you do that?
We wouldn't have had no money to get home.
What kind of work do you do?
I pack parts.
And you?
I'm a homemaker.
You are home together?
Yeah, we live together.
How long have you lived together?
About
8 years.
Yeah.
8 years. You have children, I assume?
Yes.
How many?
3.
Well, so there's no real big rush about getting married. This is not a, you know, this is a marriage that's been coming on for 8 years.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with getting married in Michigan?
That's what we're going to do now.
Good. That's what you should do now.
Yeah.
You caused them a lot of aggravation, Miss Duncan. And I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, because you couldn't control your actions, there has to be some punitive action that's available.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well,
of the
I
matter...
don't give a rat's behind what you think. This is not a touchy-feely situation, madam. They planned this day, planned to be in Las Vegas, planned to have a wedding, and because of your bad behavior, they weren't able to do that. And I think that you are responsible for some of the pain and suffering, although I usually don't even like to entertain those lawsuits because of your bad behavior. Not only that, but you caused him aggravation as well. You were the only stranger to this wedding party, and you didn't behave yourself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, she did the best job she could, so, you know, ain't really nothing I can do but keep it moving.
It was very upsetting. I didn't get married.
They should have gotten on the plane, and everything would have been fine.
She got issues and problems that she needs to seek counseling about.
They just wanted money. They got what they wanted, so, you know, keep it moving.
The drunk ain't worth a piece of gum on the bottom of my shoe.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Acree versus Jones. Step forward, please.
28-year-old Karen Acree is suing her ex-boyfriend, Donald Jones, for rent and utility bills. Donald is countersuing for rent, lost wages, and a loan to get her stereo out of pawn.
Miss Acree, according to your complaint, you and Mr. Jones lived together for a period of time in a lease that you both signed.
That is correct.
There was a problem with an altercation that the two of you had. He was put out of the apartment. You claim he owes you some bills, some rent
yes.
and utilities. Mr. Jones says that he paid up while he was living there.
Okay.
Once he was put out of the apartment, he has no intention of paying for rent and utilities. And he claims that you actually owe him money for some loans and assorted stuff. So he has a counterclaim. When did you move in together?
In July of 2004.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$650.
Who moved in?
Both of us did.
Anybody else?
My daughter.
So the three of you moved in?
Yes, she's 5 years old.
You get child support for her?
Barely, but yes.
What was the financial arrangements you had with Mr. Jones?
He signed the lease as well, and he would be paying half of the rent.
Was that your arrangement, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Where were you working at the time, Miss Acree?
I was in and out of jobs. I was working through temp agencies.
So you weren't working steadily?
No.
And what about you, Mr. Jones?
I work for a county road and bridge department, 10, 12-hour days.
Steadily?
Yes,
How much were you earning, Mr. Jones?
$1,200 a month.
And how did you put your money into the rent?
Every 2 weeks I cash my check, and since she was home during the day, she would take care of the bills. I'd just give her money.
Is that right?
That is not correct, Your Honor.
Well, tell me how you were paying your bills if you weren't working full-time.
I was paying it through TANF, which is temporary aid for families in need, and that's what I get each month. And then
You get
I would
welfare?
get, yes.
Well, that's an easier term. Let me ask you this question, Miss Acree. Why in the world would I award you any money from Mr. Jones when the state was paying your rent?
Because he did not pay his share like he was supposed to.
That's not correct.
Okay. What happened in October?
October, he got physically violent with me, threw a cell phone at me, bruised me. I had to call 911 because this happened in front of my child.
So that was in October?
Yes.
October what?
October 10th.
You filed for protective order?
Yes.
What happened with that protective order?
That got dropped.
By whom? What do you mean
By
got
me.
dropped? You dropped it?
Yes.
Why?
Because of the fact that after he had been in jail, he had to go to domestic violence classes, and we went to court and everything. I figured everything was okay.
Did you let him back into the house?
I told him he could come back into the house, yes.
Did he come back into
Yes.
the house?
In December.
For how long?
Until I got evicted in February.
Did you stay with her in January and February?
No, I didn't. I moved out of our apartment on the 10th to my parents' house. And
10th of October?
Correct.
Were you put out by the police, Mr. Jones?
I was arrested there at the apartment.
How long did you stay in jail in October?
2 days.
Did you move back with Miss Acree?
No, ma'am.
You did not?
No, I live with my parents. And in November, she contacted my parents' church trying to borrow money to pay her rent, in which case my dad was contacted by the church because my name was on the lease as well.
And you asked for some money?
From a church, yes, I did.
Why?
Because of the fact I did not have enough money to pay the whole
Why did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
Because at the time I did not have a steady job, but I
So
did
you didn't
after
have a
that.
job. Where are you working now?
Now I'm working at a gas station 40 hours a week.
When did you start this job?
A month ago.
And the previous job?
I had for a couple months until he got me fired from it.
Miss Acree, how long had you been receiving welfare to pay your rent?
For about a year.
Before you met him?
Yes.
So it wasn't because of him that you were in this
No.
financial position?
No, I was in school.
School to learn what?
Accounting.
And?
And I have a degree.
You have a degree in accounting and you're working at a gas station.
Yeah, I
Something
know.
doesn't balance out here, Miss Acree. Why don't you get a job with H&R Block instead of getting a job at a gas station?
Because I'd rather not work at H&R Block, but that's...
You'd rather work at a gas station. So what did you go to school for accounting for?
Because I wanted a degree.
Okay, let me hear about your counterclaim.
Okay, first off, not only did I pay her bills and her rent, she had a car payment that I was helping her out with, cell phone bills also. She worked for a month and a half to the 6 months we were together at that apartment. She also asked me for a loan of $150 to get a car stereo out of the pawn shop.
Which
so I
is
gave
not
her.
true.
So I gave her the $150.
When did you do that?
Do you have the month on that?
No, no, no. Don't ask her.
I don't know. I don't have that.
Your Honor, I have the proof right here that it was not $150, and he went with me to the pawn shop. It was $54.
What month?
In March.
March of what year?
This year, 2005.
What were you doing going to the pawn shop with him in March to get your stereo out of hock?
I got it out this year because of the fact that I had to put it in there to make the rest of a car payment.
What I don't understand is if you're not together with him, why you call him to help you get something out of a pawn shop?
He was calling me, actually, and he asked me, he told me he didn't want me to lose it. And I said, okay, well, it's $54 to get it out. And he said, okay, let's go get it out.
How did you come to go with her to the pawn shop in March?
I didn't go through the pawn shop. She asked me to borrow money, as she has multiple times.
Then you shouldn't lend her money, Mr. Jones.
I'm a slow learner on that one, I guess.
Miss Acree, I don't believe he owes you a dime for rent. I believe that he worked. You did not. I believe that he contributed to the household. You did not. Now, if you had had a job all that
time... But I did. I worked at Kodak, and I worked...
Show me proof that you worked anywhere. Show me proof. You're not entitled to any money, Miss Acree. And Mr. Jones, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Goodbye. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Parties are excused when they step out.
Susan and Lloyd Weaver are suing the father of their daughter's former friend, Mark Cooley, for the cost of a Hawaiian vacation. The Weavers say Mark has yet to pay for his daughter's share.
Now, this is case number 182 on the calendar, the matter of Weaver versus Cooley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Young ladies, have seats, please.
Oh, my goodness. Do you really want to be here?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, this is your complaint. Your daughter and the defendant's daughter are friends, and you were taking a trip to Hawaii. According to your complaint, you invited Mr. Cooley's daughter to accompany your family on the trip. And the arrangement was that if she were going to go with you, her mother and father, who are divorced, were going to split the cost of her basic trip.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
And it is your claim that Mr. Cooley, who was her father, did not pay for his half of her trip.
Yes.
Mr. Cooley said that he never had a contract with you, right?
That's correct.
That he was sort of presented with a fait accompli, that he fell on some hard financial times, otherwise he certainly would have wanted his daughter to have this experience, which she, by the way, did have. She did go with you. His defense is that he never had a contract with you. When were you planning this trip?
February of 2004 is when we first contacted them about planning the trip.
When you say them, who did you contact?
I contacted Brittany's mother because Brittany lives with her mom, and we discussed the option of her being able to go with us.
And what was the arrangement that you made with her mother?
I told her mother that we'd be happy for Brittany to accompany us because she was our daughter's best friend, and that if she would pay for just the airline flight and then the expenses of the activities such as the snorkeling and et cetera that we did there, okay, and that we would be glad to pay for all of her food and then any of the other miscellaneous expenses. And then her mother said that she would have to contact Brittany's father to see if he'd pay for half and let us know. Then she called us and said that she'd spoke with her ex-husband, and he agreed.
Did you speak with him?
We spoke with him 30 days before the trip. He came over to our house. Not that day, not that time.
When did you go on the trip?
December.
So practically a year later.
Correct.
And it wasn't until November that you say that you contacted Mr. Cooley. Is that right?
Yes, because we were unable to get a hold of him.
Had you purchased the tickets already?
Yes, ma'am.
So you purchased the non-refundable tickets based upon the conversation you had with Brittany's mother.
Correct.
Now, you understand that up until this time you had no contract with Mr. Cooley. Do you understand that?
No, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to try to explain it to you.
Okay.
What you did was you had, at best, a contract with Brittany's mother to pay for half the cost of the trip. Brittany's mother cannot obligate Brittany's father to pay for the other half. She can't say he's going to pay for the other half and in any way obligate him. Do you have a sibling?
Yes, ma'am.
Brother or sister?
I have two sisters and a brother.
Okay, let's take the brother. He's easy. What's his name?
Michael.
All right, let's say Michael wanted to have his family room redone. So we went to a contractor, and the contractor said it's going to cost $10,000 to redo your family room. And Michael said, that's fine. I'm going to pay for half, and my sister promised me that she would pay for the other half as a birthday present. So you go ahead and you do this renovation for $10,000. Michael gives him $5,000 and says, go get the other $5,000 from my sister. What's your first name?
Susan.
Susan. Goes to Susan. Susan says, listen, I told him if I could, one day I would like to make a present of $5,000, but I never agreed to pay you $5,000. I didn't have a contract with you. You want your money, go to Michael. Now do you understand?
I understand that, ma'am, yes.
He may have agreed to something, but up until November, I just want you to understand you had no contract with him.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank
Got
you.
it?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me what happened in November.
Well, my husband spoke with him. I don't know if you want to talk to him as far as
I
that.
sure do.
Okay.
He's the only one I can speak to if he
Okay.
spoke to him.
I talked to Mr. Cooley about the expenses that we had occurred already, purchasing the non-refundable tickets, and that she would need $300 to $400 to pay for the incidental expenses that she would occur as far as the snorkeling, the luau, and that kind of stuff that she would need over there. And he agreed at that time that...
What did he say? Not he agreed. What did he say?
He said the trip sounded good, that it was a one-in-a-lifetime trip for her, that it was something that they had never, ever planned for her to do, and that he would pay his half.
He said he would pay his half.
His half.
And are those the words he used?
To the best of my recollection, yes, Your Honor.
Did he give you any money?
No, ma'am.
So when was he supposed to pay you?
He indicated that he had had some problems health-wise, and at the time he was unable to give us any money. And we told him when he got back on his feet, whenever he could pay us monthly payments or whatever have you. But basically, he had us over a barrel. We had to take Brittany. We weren't going to disappoint her and not take her.
Now it's your turn.
Well, first of all, I didn't go to their house at all. My conversation with Mr. Weaver was over the phone, and that was only because in August I went on disability, and I was informing him that I was not going to be able to pay, and he had said, quote unquote, well, give me what you can, and if you can't give me anything, then that's fine, your daughter's going to go anyway. So I mentioned to my daughter that I wasn't going to be able to pay for her trip, and she was going to have to ask her mother to pay for it in its entirety.
Okay. Something that you said to me, Mr. Cooley, however, has an interesting ring to it. You said that you called the Weavers because your financial circumstances changed. You wanted to let them know that you could no longer pay your half. Is that right?
That's true.
Well, that suggests to me, sir, that you had originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half when she originally called you in February of 2004. Are you following what I'm saying to you? Am I correct, Mr. Cooley, that you originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half of the expenses?
That is correct. But in February of 2004, I was under the impression that I was only going to help her out on her airfare.
Fine. Let's say that's what you were told, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Not help her out, half, because the words that you used to me were half, right?
Right.
Now, the airfare was how much?
The exact price was $729.43.
So is what you're telling me now, Mr. Cooley, that what your understanding was that you were going to pay for half the airfare, and that's what you agreed to with your former wife? Don't think of what I'm going to say after that, Mr. Cooley. Believe me, you're never going to be able to leapfrog over my mind.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're dealing with children. She could just as easily go to her father and say, listen, I want to go on this trip. It's $200 to go. It turns out that it's $2,000. What am I going to do, put her in jail?
And later today,
You claim that he made over $2,000 in sex calls, probably many of whom are guys talking and making out that they're women.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Susan and Lloyd Weaver say the father of their daughter's former best friend, Mark Cooley, owes for a Hawaiian vacation.
Now, is that what you agreed to with your former wife, to pay for half the airfare?
Right. Well, to be honest with you, my correspondence with my wife, because we don't speak, has been through my daughter.
Is that what you promised your daughter?
Correct.
And your daughter, I assume, conveyed that to her mother?
Yeah.
Brittany, what did you tell your mother?
Well, I told my mom that I was going on the trip and how much it was.
How much did you tell her it was?
I told her that as far as what I knew, it was $350 that she was supposed to pay.
And you told your father the same thing?
That he was supposed to pay $350 also.
And he agreed to that?
Yes.
Good. Now you can sit down. Okay, Mr. Cooley, let us assume everything that you say is correct, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Why didn't you pay him?
Well, in August, I went on disability, and so my whole financial situation changed.
You already said that to me. But at this point, they had non-refundable tickets, and one way or another, your daughter was going to go. Did you ever think, sir, of saying, I have to send the Weavers $50 a month because I agreed to do that? They took my daughter on a trip. I had a contract with them to pay them half, according to you. Not according to them, but according to you. Half the airfare for your daughter.
When I gave them the $150, there was somewhat of an agreement that I could pay monthly.
When did you give them $150?
I gave them $150 upon them coming back from their trip.
Give me the date. You have the date?
It was January 6th, Your Honor.
And you cashed that check?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So that's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 6 months later. And you haven't given them any money since?
Well, in April, the tides had turned because they kind of sent me a threatening letter, or at least I thought it was threatening, informing me that we don't want any ill feelings toward you or your wife. This could affect our daughter and your daughter's friendship.
They're absolutely right. It's a very good reason for you to send a check and say, I'm sorry, I told you that finances were really tight. I realize that this is my obligation. Here's $50. Here's $30. Here is something to demonstrate that I recognize that this is my obligation. You have a letter like that?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Well, that's the wrong thing. You did the wrong thing, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, the only contract that I can ascribe to Mr. Cooley is for half of the airfare. And I say that because that's what his daughter says that she told her mother, and she told him. So, unfortunately, what?
We sent Mr. Cooley 3 letters advising him that he still owed us money. He sent us a letter back. And in that letter, he said that it's not verbatim.
Show me the letter.
You got it, ma'am.
If what you're saying to me is he acknowledges anything more than
Yes,
the
Your Honor, it does.
airfare.
The letter's several pages long, Your Honor. The first page shows that he agreed to pay half.
Well, let
but
me
it just
see.
says to pay half of Brittany's expenses.
Have the letter.
The whole letter.
Uh-huh.
And, Your Honor, if I may just say one more thing. Brittany's mom paid us the $550.
I don't care
that
what
she
she
owed
did.
us, so she knew that half of it was $550.
Listen
if I
to
just
me.
might say that.
You cannot ascribe anything to him that Brittany's mother knew.
Okay, I won't say anything else
Nothing.
about that.
If you want to have a contract with somebody, you have to talk to them face to face, or you have to speak to them personally over the phone, and then memorialize it in a written document that is signed. Then it's a contract that you have between 2 people. If you're dealing with children, she could just as easily go to her father and say, listen, I want to be able to go on this trip. It's $200 to go. Will you pay for $200? And he says, sure, I'll pay for $200. And it turns out that it's $2,000. You've already booked the ticket, so you're out $2,000. What am I going to do, put her in jail? Of course not. That's why you don't deal with children when you're making a contract with...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Cooley, listen to me. This is all wrong, sir. You say to them, I agreed to pay 1/2 of my daughter's expenses. And if I believe what you say it was based on me being employed. Well, that's not true. That's not true, sir. Your agreeing to pay for half of her airfare was not based upon your being employed, because you didn't have that conversation with your daughter. When you said to your daughter, I'll pay for half of your airfare, you didn't say to her, on condition that I'm still working, right?
Right.
Okay. I had no control over my going on disability, which cut my salary in 1/3. So what? What's that their problem? That's your problem, not theirs. What's the nature of your disability?
Stress.
And you came here? I can see from this rambling letter that you are stressed, Mr. Cooley, so I won't proceed any further. You owe these people an additional $214, and that's giving you every possible benefit of the doubt, sir, that the only thing you agreed to was to pay for 1/2 of her airfare. I mean, I think that if you wanted to be a good guy, you would say to them, listen, I don't want you to be out any money, and I don't want our daughters who were good friends to be estranged, so I'm going to make it my business to see to it that you get the extra $50 a month until it's all paid off. But From a legal perspective, I can't do that. I can, however, find that you agreed to pay for half the airfare. You have already given them $150, leaving a balance of $214. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't know if it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. It's not like she's not going to be able to go anywhere else.
Brittany's dad has a problem with this now, and so she's not really able to come over to our house.
We don't really hang out that much anymore.
I think she'd be over a lot more this summer if this wasn't going on.
We'll still be friends.
I hope that would happen.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Fleischer versus McWhorter. Step forward, please.
Harriet Fleischer is suing her former tenant, Robert McWhorter, for rent and for running up her phone bill with sex calls.
Miss Fleischer, do you live in a private house or an apartment?
Private house.
How long have you lived there?
18.5 years.
Who do you live with?
Currently, I have one tenant.
What kind of work do you do, Miss Fleischer?
I'm a computer consultant.
How long have you been doing that kind of work?
Far too long. 9.5, 10 years.
This is your complaint. You rented a room to Mr. McWhorter, who was a friend of yours and going through some difficult times. You said that you would allow him to come and stay in your home, $100 a week, and you claim he left owing you some rent.
That's
which
correct.
is really not what you're complaining about, because he acknowledges that he owes a couple of $100s in rent. You claim that he made over $2,000 in 1-900 sex calls on your phone.
That's correct.
Mr. McWhorter said, I didn't do that. When were you living with Miss Fleischer, Mr. McWhorter?
Approximately right before Thanksgiving till the 23rd of December.
So maybe November the 20th?
Yeah, it was a Saturday when I moved in.
To
So
December what?
23rd.
You have a copy of your phone bill?
I do. I have a
I'd
copy.
like to take a look at it, please.
I had spoke to Mrs. Fleischer when I returned from my trip, and she verbally told me over the phone, I took her word for it. I never physically saw the bills myself, that it was between $900 and $1,000.
Look at me. What difference does it make how with 900 and 1,000? I read your answer, Mr. McWhorter. Your answer says, I didn't make those calls and I don't know who did. So is now what you're telling me, sir, that you did make these calls, you just didn't know the extent of the bill. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
All right. Well, that's a little different from your answer. I know that sometimes I can be a little intimidating. That's a very good thing. So I don't have to go through these bills and humiliate you to see how long you stood on the line with these people, probably many of whom are guys talking and making out that they're women. Go find a nice girl, Mr. McWhorter. Get your own phone.
May I interject here, Your Honor?
Oh, if you have to.
Robert told me that he had his own phone. When we made arrangements for his moving in...
Miss Fleischer, doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
His story now, after he took a look at this kind face of mine, was, I acknowledge I made the phone calls, that I was stupid, right?
Very.
I was unthinking, right? Right? I'm dying to pay you and get out of here because I'm humiliated. And don't humiliate me anymore.
Yes, Your Honor.
They could all be so easy.
There are guys pretending to be women?
Yeah, I saw that in a movie once. You know, there were guys that just raise their voice and they sit there and they make other people feel foolish. It was in some Jack Lemmon movie or something. Remember Jack Lemmon?
Remember Jack Lemmon?
Most people don't remember Jack Lemmon. I remember Jack Lemmon.
May I say something, Your Honor?
What?
I have explained to Mrs. Fleischer that I'm an alcoholic and I have gone through several blackout stages. That's why. No, I'm putting it all on the table.
Listen, I gotcha. I understand.
And this is part of my recovery, is to make amends for whatever damages I have done.
So why did you
in
have
the
to
past.
come here? Why couldn't you tell her that outside?
I attempted to. I didn't know that I was even actually have been taken to court until...
Well, where did you think you were going? To Never Never Land today?
No.
How much do you owe for rent?
I believe it would be between $100 and $200.
He left owing $200 in rent.
Okay.
On a week-to-week, there's a 1 week, as I understand it, a 1 week...
There's a 1 week nothing. Don't go crazy.
Okay.
He owes you $2,652.
Okay.
You've taken care of this before you came to court, sir. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Good.
Your
Thank
Honor?
you very much. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Loan becomes a gift when the relationship is over. Did you ever hear that?
I've never heard that one.
Nor have I.
Good, because I just made it up. Should put it on coffee mugs. Miss Roning?
Running. Yes.
Running. You and the defendant had a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship when you were both in the Navy, according to your papers.
Correct.
Is that right? And that relationship was a little under 2 years?
Just, yes.
During that time, you say he wanted to buy a car, and you lent him how much money?
$1,500
Put that on your bank card.
on my credit card, yes.
How much after that did you break up?
Probably about 4 months.
No money.
None.
Tell me what your arrangement was about paying back the money.
The loan happened in October, and I gave him till April to be able to pay me back. And he hadn't paid me anything since then or ever since.
Did you talk to him about it?
Yes, I did. And even when we were breaking up, I asked him about it. He said, don't worry about it, I'll pay you. I'm good on the money. And I trusted him, believed him, because he's paid me before. I have loaned him money before, and he has paid me back. And so I had no problem with it. And
Why
so,
was he always in need of money?
I don't know.
Did he ever lend you money?
No, he's never lent me money. I've always been more financially stable than he has for some reason. I think he just buys a lot of extra stuff he doesn't need. Just guys, you know.
Men like toys.
Yes, they do. Cars, especially.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's like, well, you know, don't worry about it. It's close to Christmas. Meaning that it was going to be like a gift. And I told her, I said I was not going to be able to pay her back. She said...
You told her that?
Yes, ma'am.
Susan Ronning is suing her former boyfriend, Jason Alexandrides, for money she says. Susan Ronning is suing her former boyfriend, Jason Alexandrides, for money she says she loaned him for a car.
What kind of car was this?
1993 Ford Explorer.
Why didn't you pay her back the money?
To back up a little bit, she needed a car. So I had a 1989 Nissan 240SX that I sold to her. She only had $5,000. So I'm still paying on that loan today, and I have the loan paperwork with me. So I'm still paying on that loan today, and I have the loan paperwork with me. The bank released the title to her in her name and kept the $2,500 on the loan to my signature that I'm still paying on. So
she gave you the $5,000.
She gave me $5,000.
You were living together at the time.
Correct.
Okay. You didn't make a gift of the car to her.
No.
And you were living together.
Correct.
So, let's go on with the story.
I was getting to the point. Anyway, so the leftover that I was still paying on was just kind of, you know, that was the limit of her money, so I just told her I would just, that was it, pay on the rest. Because I owed $2,506 extra, okay? So later down the line when I needed...
You had another car.
Right, I needed to buy another car months later.
No, but you had another car when you sold her this car.
No.
So you were both using this car when you were living together?
Yeah, for a few months, period.
So for the few months, you sold her your car, she paid you for it, and the two of you together only had one car.
Right, but she...
Just a second, you have to think about where he's going and think about whether he's hurting you or not by this story.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Then you needed a car.
I needed a car, so we went looking for cars together. She went with me. And we went to the Ford dealership, and we found the Explorer that I wanted. Now, I only had $1,500 down payment of my own money, and we needed $3,000, okay? And I financed the Explorer through my own lender, private bank. Susan gave me $1,500 from her.
Well, tell me how that came about, sir. You went looking for the Explorer, you went into the store, you had a salesman, he came over, he showed you this car. Let me hear how it happened.
Well, we just took it for a test drive.
Yes.
We liked it. And Susan and I had the conversation there at the dealership when they were gathering paperwork. I said, well, I don't have, you know, they were trying to make the deal. And she wanted to...
Tell me about the conversation. Now we're getting to it.
Okay. The conversation was, needed it, she would give it to me, $1,500. And I said, are you sure? Because I'm still paying on, needed it, she would give it to me, $1,500. And I said, are you sure? Because I'm still paying on the extra from the 240, you know. I'm still paying that $64.93 a month for that. And I'm not, you know, I just don't have the $1,500. She's like, well, you know, don't worry about it. It's close to Christmas. You know, we'll get through it. And that was the arrangement.
Close to Christmas, we'll get through what?
Well, meaning that it was going to be like a gift. That I told her, I said I was not going to be able to pay her back. you know, and she said...
You told her that sitting there?
Sitting there.
Sitting right there, you told her that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that true?
That's absolutely not true.
Well, tell me your recollection of what happened.
Okay, when we were sitting at the dealership, he needed the $1,500. He only had $1,500. He asked that I loan him the $1,500.
What did he say?
He said, remember the last times that you've loaned me money, I've paid you back. I've been good about paying you back. I said, yeah. This is a lot of money, though. He says, well, I've been good about the money. I promise to pay you back. I will pay you back. And I said, well, if you want this car and you want to make this transaction, I don't mind doing it as long as you pay me back. And he agreed to that. He said, fine, I'll pay you back.
I think probably somewhere in the middle of both of these stories lies the truth. Because quite frankly, it just doesn't sit well with me for two people who are living together, and I assume planning a future together if you're living together, to have that kind of in-depth discussion. For instance, you were so good about it in the past, you paid me money, I've lent you money, then you paid me back, and so I'm going to do this again. Somehow that doesn't sit right with me, nor does it sit right with me, sir. It's coming up towards Christmas and consider it a Christmas gift. Do you understand? So somewhere right in the middle of this is the accurate rendition. Now, when for the first time did you ask him back for the money?
I asked him in April. I talked to him before when we broke up, because we broke up before April, if he would pay me back. He said he would.
When did you break up?
We broke up in January.
Had you both decided that it wasn't a good relationship?
There's been other, he's kind of abusive and a little, yes.
And you were paying your bank card all this time?
Yes, I'm paying my bank card. I had money on it already, and so I had interest accumulating. And so I still haven't been able to pay everything off because I'm still going to school. I'm a student at San Diego State, and I'm taking loans out. I've taken financial aid. There's no way I can give anybody money.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I was in the Navy for 4 years.
What are you doing now?
I'm still in the Navy now. That's my last...
I called the bank and I asked them. It's $325 accumulated with no payments.
So it's a little less than what you're suing for. You were suing for $2,000.
Yes, just to make sure it would cover. That's my advisor said just to do that.
So, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Deal with the money?
I don't believe so. But I'm not sitting up there, so here I am.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Listen, she purchased a car from you, even when you were together. You had payments on that car. Through love and affection, you could have said to her, listen, don't pay me any money for the car. I want you to have it because I want you to have a safe car to drive. You didn't do that.
I couldn't afford to do that.
Well, she says she goes to school. She can't afford to make you a gift of $1,500. You knew she was going to school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you couldn't afford to do it, and she can't afford to do it. So she purchased a car from you. She had money saved up, I assume. I mean, who knows whether you could have gone out and sold that car for any more if you sold it privately. It's very possible that you couldn't have, that that was really a fair market price for the car at the time you sold it to her. In any event, she paid you, you didn't pay her. That doesn't sound fair to me. So the judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,825. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
We'd spent, a couple years together. It was just time to, we were just not ready for that intense of a commitment, I don't think, at our age.
He's a very angry person. He's been an angry person as he was a child, and he always brought that up.
I lost, so I can just take it and, and live and learn and move on.
In this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,825. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge...
Step down, please.
31-year-old exotic dancer LaDonna Sanchez is suing her former friend and roommate, 26-year-old Sean Henry, for unpaid loans, rent, and a stolen VCR.
Order. All rise. Judge's case number 347 on the calendar in the matter of Sanchez versus Henry. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Well, each of you claim that the other owes you money, just about the same amount of money, $2,600 change. Ms. Sanchez, you claim that this gentleman was living with you. He left owing you money for a variety of things, which you'll tell me about. You say you made a loan to her for lawyer, $1,500 for something. You'll tell me about that. So why don't you start from the beginning? How come the two of you were living together?
Sean said he had no place to go. And when we first moved together, he was getting kicked out of his apartment. I was leaving my apartment.
Had you been friends?
Yeah, we had been friends. We had met at work. And at the time, we were staying in a hotel, and it was like you pay every week. Then we found an apartment through one of his friends at work. He got the apartment in his name, okay? And then later I had got it put in my name. I have a rental agreement. And I was giving Sean the money because he knew the landlord. I had no idea, and I work at night. And so I would give Sean money every week to pay rent. Sean didn't pay rent. I have an agreement that we both signed saying that we're both 4 months in the hole in rent. And I'm like, you know, how in the world can this be? I give you money every week, you know?
What you're telling me is you gave him your share of the rent.
Every
How
week.
much was the rent?
$250.
$250 a month?
Each.
Yes, each. It's $500 a month.
Okay. So you gave him your $250?
Yes.
And he never paid the rent?
No. I have a piece of paper saying right here that we're both, and he signed it. We both signed it, saying that we're 4 months in the rent, 4 months behind in the rent to this day.
Didn't I pay her 70?
I don't know. Do you have a receipt?
Shh, don't talk to each other. Don't talk to each other. Okay. You both signed that you're both responsible for half the rent. Did you pay the rent, sir?
When I moved out, I paid $750.
I'm talking about while you were living there with her.
We lived together for a whole year and a half.
How long were you living in the apartment together?
About a year and a half, 2 years.
And did you pay the rent?
Yes.
All that time?
Yes.
No, he didn't. He's lying.
Ms. Sanchez,
Yes, ma'am.
you have rent receipts?
She had them all.
Did you ultimately pay all the rent?
Not yet. I am still in the hole because of Sean.
How did that come about, that you're in the hole?
Okay, Sean was unemployed. First, Sean moved out, okay, because me and Sean and my boyfriend were living together, right? And everything was fine, but we still owed her $2,000.
The three of you were living in the apartment?
Yes.
And the rent was $500?
Yes.
So
but my boyfriend didn't really live there. He wasn't responsible for any of the rent. That was my responsibility. He didn't hardly have any clothes there, okay? He was just,
You just told me
there.
the three of you were living
in
there.
a two-bedroom apartment. Yeah. He had his own room. I had my own room. He had his company. I had my company. So my boyfriend didn't really live there. He had all his clothes someplace else. My boyfriend did. Sean was fired from his job, came crying to me that he didn't have any place to go. Okay, no place to go. He couldn't go live with his brother. They were having problems. He can go live with his father. They're having problems.
So what you're saying to me, madam...
So I let him move back in. I let him move back in on the agreement that he helped me with households.
In May of 1997, sir, you signed an agreement that you owed her a total of, well, this would be $1,000, right? Because it says that total owing was $2,000. And Henry and Sanchez are responsible for 50% of the total, and you signed this, correct? So you acknowledged in May that you owed her $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? Did you pay her?
I paid the landlord $750.
No. I'm not saying what you paid the landlord. I'm saying what you paid her.
Why would I owe her?
Because I gave you the money every day to pay the rent, and you didn't, stupid.
Now, you want me to dismiss your lawsuit?
No.
This is $2,000. Each of you owe half of that. So that's $1,000. Did you pay it or did you not pay it?
I paid $750. I guess I still owe the landlord $250.
When did you pay the landlord $750?
July?
When did you move out?
July?
No, shh. Show me the receipt.
I don't have that.
That makes this easy. So that's $1,000. What else does he owe you for?
He bought Through his work, I got a VCR because he could get it cheaper from Dow Stereo.
How much did you pay for it?
$160.
Okay.
That's all the money that I gave him for the VCR.
How much did you pay for the VCR?
Got a receipt right here.
Okay.
213.
213, and you gave him 160. Where's the receipt?
I didn't ask Sean for receipts.
Okay. Did she give you $160 for the VCR?
Every
No.
day I get...
You wanted a video camera.
Listen to me.
But you didn't.
You each want money from each other. It would be very foolish. So you say you bought it for $160, and you're going to show me a receipt for $213. And you claim that when he moved out, why did he move out?
Because he wouldn't do his chores, nor did he pay rent. The first month that he moved back in after he was unemployed, he went to Las Vegas, okay? That was on Memorial Day. Didn't tell me anything. And then he comes home, oh, I'm broke, I went to Las Vegas. Like, what the hell are you going to Las Vegas for? Oh, so I could see if I can win some more money. And I'm like, you've got to be stupid. And every day, that month that he was there and he was unemployed, I gave him money because every day I had to go to work.
Are you finished?
Yes.
What's the address of this apartment where you live together?
802, apartment A. He didn't help me with the chores. He didn't help me take care of it.
I don't care. I'm not your therapist, madam. This is a court.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Are you telling me that this attorney, under the penalties of perjury in the state of California, is lying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, really? Maybe I'll call him.
And later today,
She was in high demand because she was a natural blonde and had natural big breasts.
I'm sure if I chose to pursue that career instead of a research scientist, I would be in high demand, yes.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dancer LaDonna Sanchez wants her former close friend Sean Henry to pay her for back rent. Sean says she kicked him out.
So what happened with the VCR that you said was yours?
He took it from me. I went to sleep. He went in my room and took it out of my room.
Okay. Now what's your story?
I let her use it. I never said she can have it. I bought it.
Utter crap.
Shh, shh.
I said you could use it.
Now, you also say that you made some loans to him. You want to tell me about that?
The month that he moved in, since he was unemployed, he would ask me for money every day.
I'm not talking, Miss, listen to me. I'm not talking about the $5 and the $10 that you say you gave him because he was unemployed. Did you lend him any large sums of money for which he promised to make payment?
Not all at one time. Every day, can I borrow some money? Can I borrow some money?
Did you keep a record of that?
He was my best friend.
Did you keep a record? The answer is no. So you're just guessing about how much money you lent
No,
him?
I'm not. I knew how much money I had saved in my drawer before he had moved in.
So how much money did you give him?
$350.
I don't believe that you can.
I did. Every day I gave him $20 or $30 every day because he needed it.
So
he
you
needed
did
it
you
for
write
gas.
down-
He was supposed to go look for a
Did
job.
you write
I bought him news.
You're not listening to me, Miss Sanchez. I said, did you write down these numbers?
I didn't think I had to.
Well, then that's a problem.
He's supposed to be my best friend. He was supposed to be my little brother.
You're countersuing up for a lot of money too. Let me hear it.
Well, one time
Not well. Look at me.
she got arrested coming back across the border, and she needed a lawyer. So she called me crying, I need a lawyer. So I paid $1,500 for a retainer to try and help her out.
When was this?
June 26, 96.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No.
You just took out a piece of paper. What is that?
This is the piece of paper that was the only thing that I gotten from that lawyer. I saw that lawyer once. I knew it wouldn't do me any good. I cussed Sean out on the phone about what do I need a lawyer for? The lawyer wasn't going to do me any good.
Just a second. You went to see a lawyer.
No, I didn't. The lawyer came to jail. And I'm like,
Lawyer came to jail. Lawyers don't do anything for free.
I didn't ask him for the lawyer. I never asked him for the lawyer. And if I did ask for him a lawyer, it wouldn't be from him. It would have been from Ruth, my boyfriend.
Listen to me. Where were you when you paid this lawyer? Were you in
I was...
California?
Yeah.
Does he have a receipt?
I have a feeling you two people deserve each other because you are, Miss Sanchez, irritating me. And I'm just about ready to show you the door. Do you understand?
Yes.
With nothing. Not your $1,100, nothing, if you do it again. You got it? I want you to show me any documentation, sir, that you have with regard to this lawyer.
Right here.
Can I see it, please? Well, this clearly is a letter from an attorney indicating that he accepted a non-refundable retainer in the amount of $1,500 from the defendant on your behalf on the 26th of June, 1996.
That's his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend's father. Why wouldn't he write him that piece of paper?
Are you telling me that this attorney, under the penalties of perjury in the state of California, is lying? Are you...
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, really? Maybe I'll call him.
No,
Maybe I'll call him. You want me to call him?
Can you look at this for me
Sure.
for a minute?
I asked you a question. Do you think I have to call him?
No.
Right.
But he was never my attorney. I did not ask Sean to get me a lawyer.
How did you find out she had been arrested?
She called me from jail.
I believe that, Miss Sanchez.
I did not ask him.
How would he know that you're in jail unless you called him?
I did call him from jail.
And what did you call him for? To say, how are you?
No, we lived together.
This happened a long time ago, correct? Did you ever sue her for this money?
No.
Why?
So I cared about her.
Good.
Excuse me, Your Honor, may I say something?
Sure.
When the lawyer thing came about...
You're lying, Miss Sanchez. Don't lie to me. I don't like when you lie to me.
I did not. Yeah. I'm not lying.
Sure you are. Now, was there ever an agreement that you had with her that she would repay this lawyer's fee to you?
Well, we had an agreement.
Mr. Henry, you don't want to go down that road, sir. I guess you do. You want to tell me about this agreement? Tell me what words we used, Mr. Henry.
Well, she said, get me out of here. Whatever it costs.
And you said?
I'll try the best I can. I borrowed the money from my brother.
No, don't tell me how you borrowed the money. She said, get me out of here. Right?
Yes.
And you did?
Well, I tried.
Okay. No, an agreement to pay it back means get me out of here, whatever it costs, and I will pay you back. That's a contract. That's an oral contract. But you didn't have that with her.
No.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought. So, that's honest.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You never paid rent. You didn't clean up the house. You didn't clean up your stuff. I had to sit up there and pick up after you. Bought food and everything.
And later today...
She begged me for sex, Your Honor. Literally.
Mr. Swan, you're not that attractive, sir.
Thank you.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Exotic dancer LaDonna Sanchez wants her former close friend Sean Henry to pay her for back rent, loans, and a stolen VCR.
I can't figure out who owns the VCR. I have a bill here for $213. So
she's also caused damage to my truck.
Shh. So I can't make a determination with regard to the VCR. I can only make a determination with regard to the contract that you both entered into, indicating that you are indebted to her for the amount of $1,000. Now, you want to tell me about this truck?
Yeah, she's damaged it.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, one time at work, she said she locked the keys in, so she had to break the back window, and I had to pay for that.
I paid him back.
And when we were in a fight, I wouldn't let her drive it. She didn't have a license or insurance on it.
So what did she do to the truck?
She kicked it. Put a nice dent on the driver's side door.
Let me see.
And I got estimates of the damage right here.
Looks like there's lots of damage on this truck. Lots of scratches on this truck.
From his DUIs.
You have about your boyfriend kicking it.
Oh, wonderful. You ready? Dismissed! Dismissed! Goodbye.
Sorry, excuse. Step out.
I don't understand why it was dismissed. Because I talked? He was supposed to be my best friend. Okay, he dogged me just because I won't be his stupid girlfriend. Sorry. Now it's dismissed because you're stupid. Never see my fucking money again. Make me sick.
And now the next case.
Party's on Maris versus Swan. Step forward.
32-year-old research scientist Ann Maris is suing her former friend, physical education instructor William Swan, for unpaid credit card bills.
Why do women give men credit cards?
I think it has something to do with the word convinced. Mr. Swan looked me straight in the eye and told me he loved me, wanted to marry me, that I thought he had morals.
Mr. Swan, go ahead.
I thought he had morals.
How did you meet him?
I met him in the produce section of an Asian store, Asian market.
And how long did you know him before you put his name on your credit card?
5 months.
And had you dated during that 5 months?
Beginning about 2 or 3 months prior to that, we started seeing each other on a more regular basis and talking pretty much every day on the phone, at least once.
So he needed some credit, and you said you'd give him credit on your card.
He said one morning I talked to him from work, and he said he desperately needed a refrigerator, that he was getting skinny, and that his brother wouldn't loan him the money, and that it would be about $500. And I told him I didn't have the money, and I thought we could find one a lot cheaper than that, as I had paid $100 for mine, and that I would be willing to let him put it on a credit card that had no other money on it, so we could be clear. And he had told me he was going to pay it out of his tax return, and he didn't know why his brother wouldn't loan him the money.
Okay. To make a long story short, because Mr. Swan is going to tell me what his defense is, he ran up bills on the credit card totaling $1,500.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And he does not dispute that.
No.
Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
But this is your defense, that you had an agreement with her. And your agreement was that as long as you maintained the payments on the credit card, that she would keep it open.
Absolutely.
But that there came a point when you took out a significant amount of money. How much, $1,100?
Yeah.
And that after you took out that amount of money, she closed the credit card down.
Yes.
So your defense is that she breached the agreement
Yes.
by canceling the credit card, and therefore you do not owe her this money. That's what your defense is.
Something to that effect.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Well, why don't you tell me what I got wrong?
Well,
Why don't you?
not that I don't necessarily owe, but the fact that she breached our contract with reference to me keeping the payments paid that I shouldn't have to pay, because she cut it off basically out of spite because I wouldn't have sex with her.
That's not true, of course.
She begged me for sex, Your Honor.
What is that?
Literally.
Mr.
And
Swan,
I just, you know.
Mr. Swan, you're not that attractive, sir.
Thank you.
What does this have to do about owing?
She
her
thought so.
Order.
Well, sometimes love is blind. Mr. Swan, you're not serious with me, are you? You're not trying to tell this to me with a straight face that you don't owe the money that you took out on her credit card because she breached the agreement when she cut off your credit.
I never said I didn't owe it.
You
I
sure
never
you said, as far as I'm concerned, she broke the agreement and I have no intention of giving her a dime.
That's what I said. But
That's
I
what
didn't
you
say I
said
didn't
right
owe
here
her.
in your answer.
Yeah, but I didn't
Good.
say I didn't owe
You
her.
owe her $1,500, judgment for the plaintiff. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
The ex-wife, who was the defendant in this case, destroyed or threw away some irreplaceable memorabilia of yours after you were out of the house. You place a dollar value on that memorabilia at $5,000. She says that you were an abusive drunk who hit her, left the house, disappeared for months. She had no idea where you were, and ultimately got fed up with storing the stuff and just got rid of it. Correct?
That is correct.
So, how long were you married to each other, actually living together?
On and off for close to 3 years, give or take. We were only married right at 4 months, though, when I left.
And I gather you were living with the defendant's father.
That is correct.
All right, so tell me about your departure from the house.
The evening that I left, I was quite intoxicated, if you'll bear with me. This is the first time I've seen Michelle since the evening that I've left, and I still haven't really gotten over her, but the night that I left, I did become intoxicated. I went back to her father's mobile home, whereas we had another argument, and I was intoxicated enough that I don't recall whether or not she hit me and knocked me down or she shoved me and knocked me down. At that time, I got up, I slapped her, and I left, and I never went back. That was my understanding with her. I had told her if I ever raised my hand to her that I would leave. And that was the only time, Your Honor, that I had ever raised my hand to her.
So you left?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long were you gone before you made a request for this property that you say you left behind?
It was about 2 months.
And how did you make that request for the property?
By telephone originally?
Talking directly to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what property did you leave behind, sir?
I left my clothing, camping equipment, fishing equipment, some tools, an awful lot of books, memorabilia, my son's photographs from when he was a child, and I requested if I paid UPS prepaid, would she box these items up and send them to me? And at that time, I never really got a response from her.
Well, did she tell you that she had already disposed of all the stuff?
Not at that particular time, no.
Where were you for those 2 months, sir?
I was working, living in a little town called Antioch. I was living with my sister, and I was working, pumping gas.
Why didn't you call the very next week and make arrangements to pick up your stuff?
The emotional situation is that I had been fairly mentally abused by her on a number of occasions. As a matter of fact, there were times that I spent as many days in my van living there. This is my secure area. After an argument, you have to excuse me.
Do you have a drinking problem, Mr. Burge?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Has it been a long-standing problem with alcohol?
Yes, ma'am. Although this was one of the reasons I believe that Michelle had asked me to move in with her father. He also has a drinking problem, and he needed a drinking buddy.
Were you drinking all during the 3-year relationship with Michelle?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Michelle.
Yes.
Why don't you first tell me your version of what happened on the night that your husband left?
He was supposed to meet me that evening, and we were going, my son and him and I were going to go to MGM Adventure Park. He never came home. He never showed or called. And so when I returned from the park, because I went ahead and went, I found him at a casino in town, saw his van parked in the garage, and I went in and we looked for him, my son and I both. He wasn't there. So we went on home, and there he sat on the ground, very intoxicated, and laughing. And I said, thanks a lot for showing up for us. And I did push him on the shoulder, and he fell back. But I proceeded to walk down the hall and out, and he came after me, and he hit me with a fist, closed fist, like a man would hit a man. And it spun my head around. And I couldn't close my jaw for 7 days thereafter. At that point, we called the police. I was yelling, Dad, he's hitting me. Help me. He came out of the bedroom, and the police were called. At this point, Glenn tried to take my car and leave because his van was obviously still parked at the casino. And I pulled him out of the car. And I recovered my car. At that point, he walked down the street, got a neighbor to take him back to his van at the casino, and I never saw him again or heard from him.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I even went into rehab for 3 days.
But didn't work.
Well, after being out of rehab for 3 or 4 days, Michelle would make me a cocktail.
And later today,
I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for you, Susie. And every time I do something for you, this is the way I get it.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 52-year-old engineer Glenn Burge is suing his soon-to-be ex-wife Michelle, claiming she threw away precious photos and memorabilia of his son.
What had you done with all of his belongings?
Put him in an unlocked shed outside of our mobile home, which meant he had access at any time, day or night.
Ultimately, what did you do with them?
We left him there for which I have receipts from the Salvation Army until March 6th of '97.
And then they came and took all the stuff?
Yes.
What about his pictures and that sort of stuff?
They took it all. It was thrown in garbage bags and boxes and kind of...
And it had been 3 months that you hadn't heard from him, according to you?
Not at all. I contacted his aunts and uncles, which I had his address book, so I went through it and found some. Took a chance that he might be, and he was. He had been there. And so they kind of directed me to an address and a phone number.
So who called him? Did you call him?
Yes.
And what did you say when you called him?
I didn't reach him. I reached the relatives. Yes, Glenn was here. He stayed a few days and left.
So you never really reached him?
No, but he got the message, so he called back.
And when he called you, you still had the property?
Yes, we did.
So what was the conversation?
It was, hi, how are you doing? I can't live in Las Vegas anymore. The drinking's too available, and I would like you to come live here with me. And I don't really remember if the property really was mentioned at that time.
But then there came a time when you did call Salvation Army.
Yes.
Now, how much time passed between this first conversation that you had with him and the time that you actually disposed of the property?
Approximately 1 month later.
And why did you dispose of it at that time?
Because I received a letter from Glenn saying that he would be there on a Saturday and pick up his things. And I agreed, fine, we'll meet you here Saturday, and he never showed.
Do you have that letter?
No, that was no, I don't.
Do you remember writing a letter to her?
No, ma'am, there was never a letter written.
My father remembers this, Your Honor.
I believe you.
Okay.
I believe that maybe you don't remember, sir. Mrs. Burge, I gather from your husband that you knew that he had a drinking problem at the time that you married him, because you were together for 3 years, before you married him.
Yes, I did.
Why would you do that?
I didn't know it was to that extent at that point.
But you knew he had a drinking problem.
Yes, and he had said he was going to work on that, and I had hoped he would.
You know, I get the sense from looking at both of you, and from listening to you, sir, that you still have some very strong feelings for her.
Yes, I do. I did since the first day that I ever met the lady.
And I also have a sense that but for his drinking problem, you feel strongly about him.
We did. We had a very, very close relationship. And it was good when... It was good when it was...
It was good when it was good. Mr. Burge, what have you done, if anything, to deal with this problem that you have?
I haven't had a drink, Your Honor, in almost 3 months. During the course, if I may add, during the course of our relationship, towards the ending of it, I even went into rehab for 3 days.
But didn't work?
Well, after being out of rehab for 3 or 4 days, Michelle would make me a cocktail.
You have to understand, Miss Burge, the nature of the illness. You know,
Yes.
You can't treat it as if it's a thing that you can turn on and turn off. Sometimes you don't understand that. You believe that he hasn't had a drink? Looks pretty straight to me.
It's possible.
If he did enter a period of sobriety in his life, would you be interested in trying to save your marriage?
I'm not certain because he did hit me, and it wasn't the first time. He had tried to hit me before, but he
Well, that was
wasn't
only when he was
successful.
drunk?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you. I mean, nobody should live in an abusive kind of relationship.
No. Yeah.
But he did leave.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, because I think he felt terrible that he did that.
And the police were on the way.
He probably was too drunk to even understand that.
Think so?
Mr. Burge, your lawsuit is a relatively simple one, sir. She doesn't have to store your property. She hadn't heard from you for many months. I do believe that you did make arrangements to go and pick up the property, and that she didn't show up, and she got fed up and ultimately said, just get the stuff and any recollection of this man out of my life because I don't want to deal with him anymore.
If I may, I also have phone records stating, or actually physically showing, that I have been in contact with her since December, January, February. And
She says that. She says that you had
right.
been.
And in February, I'd also sent her a dozen long stem roses to her job. I was trying to keep this relationship going as long as I could possibly because of the feelings.
Then you wouldn't want to be punitive, Mr. Burge.
Right.
And you did, in fact, hit her, and I believe that you hit her. Whether you realized it at the time or not, it was more than a slap. So you're going to have to live with the fact that because you have a drinking problem, you did certain things that were really the antithesis of good behavior for any human being to another.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Certainly get the sense from the two of you that neither one of you is prepared to totally throw in the towel. Maybe you can ditch Dad for an hour and go out and have a cup of coffee.
And later today,
You using me is over with. It's
Okay.
over with.
Okay, no problem.
That's it, Susie. That's it.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Glenn Burge wants his estranged wife, Michelle, to pay for the loss of photos and memorabilia of his son. Michelle says she held on to his belongings for 6 months.
I don't think she's a bad person, sir.
She's not.
Okay. So then we really shouldn't be here today, other than perhaps for you to see her, because you said it's the first time that you've seen her since you left.
Yes, ma'am.
You certainly get the sense from the two of you that neither one of you is prepared to totally throw in the towel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Pardon me, sir. Maybe you can ditch Dad for an hour and go out and have a cup of coffee or breakfast and just talk. Is that a possibility?
If she's willing.
You willing?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Well, you see about it, Miss Burge. If your husband, who I clearly believe you have some feelings for, still. No or yes?
No, I would say no.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Just too much has happened.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Mr. Burge, you may have to try a little harder, sir. She's vacillating a little bit, so you may have to try. Maybe 3 months isn't enough. In any event, I'm not entertaining a claim for $5,000, sir. I am dismissing your lawsuit. That's all.
Okay. Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
Parties on Bishop versus Baum. Step forward, please.
35-year-old Lori Bishop is suing her former girlfriend, Ingeborg Baum, for the cost of a parking ticket. Ingeborg says it's not her fault she got the ticket and refuses to pay for it.
This was your friend. She asked you to do her a favor and drive her downtown because your daughter was in jail?
Yeah.
And you didn't have a car?
No.
So you did her a favor, drove her downtown, parked your car where you shouldn't have.
Well, not really where I shouldn't have. We parked the car. We stayed there. We tried to find out where Renati was going to be. And
Renati
how
is
long
your
was-
daughter?
Yes.
Find out how long it was going to be before she got released. Well, we'd been there probably about 3 hours, and we got back to the car, and Susie says, "What is that on your windshield?" And I says, "It can't be a ticket because I can park here. I parked here before. I know we can park here." So we went and got something to eat. We came back, and we parked across where in this little complex. And it said no parking towaway zone. I'm like, I don't feel good about this. So all we had when we started our trip out, I told her that I'd pay for the gas. I mean, she has to pay for the gas, but I'd give her the ride. So we got to the gas station, and her ATM card wouldn't work. So I put $20 in my car, and then I got $20 for us to eat because we weren't sure how long it was going to be for us, before we got back.
You parked your car where you shouldn't have parked your car, Miss Bishop.
Right. Well, I did. Well, the sign said parking this way, no parking this way, right there.
What is that? Just a second. What does that have to do with her?
Well, I wouldn't have been there if it wouldn't have been for her.
That's what she keeps saying, and
I wouldn't have been there. I did her a favor. I've done a lot for this lady.
Miss Bishop,
a lot.
Listen to me. Your argument is that but for the fact that you were doing her a favor, you wouldn't have had your car down in that location and you wouldn't have gotten a ticket.
Right.
And therefore, she is responsible for the ticket.
Right.
Let's say you were driving with her to pick up her daughter, and you were speeding.
Right.
And you got a speed. Just a second. And you got a speeding ticket. Who would be responsible for that?
No, it wouldn't be.
Who would be responsible?
I would be.
Because you did the wrong thing.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Now, you try to explain to me how it's different. Parking where you weren't supposed to be parking. And speeding.
Well, because she didn't have the money to pay where we could park, where it wasn't going to cost us any money. I mean, where it wasn't going to, cause me any harm. She didn't have the money. She didn't have any money when we went.
But then when you parked there under the tunnel, I asked you, can you park here?
Right, and I could because I did before.
So I asked
just a second. So you said you've parked there before and you didn't get a ticket.
Right.
This time you did.
Right.
Pay it.
Okay. Well, what about the money that I took $40 to eat on for the parking, to finally pay the $5 for the parking and stuff. What about that?
Just a second.
I mean, when I called her one day,
Bishop, I think she's responsible for those out-of-pocket expenses. The gas, right?
Yeah.
You've paid $5 to park the car after you moved the car when you got a ticket? Were you with her when she moved the car?
Yes.
And she paid $5 for that?
Yes.
You think you're responsible for that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. That's $25. And if you think that you were wrongfully given a ticket,
right,
then you have to go argue that the Parking Violations Bureau. You go before a hearing examiner and tell them your story. But you parked your car in the wrong place. You got a ticket.
Right.
You have to pay for it.
Well, okay.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $25.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Garrett is suing her granddaughter, Misty Oman, and Misty's boyfriend, Tom Bradford, claiming they used her, destroyed her property, and stole precious mementos.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Ma'am. Judge, number 230 on the calendar in the matter of Garrett versus Bradford Oman. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
Miss Garrett, this is your granddaughter.
That's correct.
Your name is Bradford?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're her boyfriend?
Yes.
You live together?
Yes.
And you have 2 children?
3.
3 children. But they're not your children?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Garrett, you're suing your granddaughter and her boyfriend.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because you rented them a house.
Yes, I did.
And you say that A, they did not pay rent.
That's correct.
B, they vandalized your house.
Yes.
And they took property that was yours from the house.
Absolutely.
When did you and why did you rent this house to them?
Well, Misty lived there prior for a year, approximately, prior to a year of her mom moving out.
So originally her mother lived there and she lived with her mother and her 3 children.
Exactly. And then the mother moved out and Misty...
That's your daughter?
My daughter. Misty didn't have any place to go, nor the money to go anyplace else. So I told her I would rent her my house, and I did.
What was the monthly rental?
$466. That covers my mortgage payment.
Now, you admit, Miss Ullman, that you did not make one rental payment.
Yes.
And that's after you say you were served with an eviction notice from your grandmother.
Yes.
So you admit that you owe her that money.
Yes, I do.
There came a time when you decided to evict her.
Yes.
Can you tell me why?
Well, for one thing, they were not paying the rent, which I needed. I'm on a fixed income. I needed the rent money to cover my own expenses. I have enough to take care of my own personal needs, but not that of Misty, her boyfriends, or her children. So I needed the money for that. And the eviction started over the payment. There was also other problems involved during the eviction.
Like what?
Over the children.
What?
I heard verbal abuse from Mr. Bradford with the 3 children. I was very much concerned about that. They were going to ship the young boy off to Alaska to a father that he hardly knew, to people that did not know him. And I was very upset.
Her oldest child they were going to send to the father's house.
In Alaska, because he was causing problems. He does have a behavior problem. But to me, you don't have throwaway children.
How close do you live to them?
I lived about 60 feet in a studio apartment that's on the same property as my big house.
Before you served them with an eviction notice, did you tell them that you wanted them to move out?
Yes, I did.
Are you sure?
I sent them a letter asking them to come to me to work out a payment plan for the rents owed.
How many months' rent did they owe you by the time they left?
She stayed there. They stayed there. May I have a drink of water?
Please.
They stayed there for 3 months. They paid me a total of $580.
Do you have proof of payment of more than $580?
No, I do not. I used money orders, and I gave the money orders to my grandma, and then she went to the bank and made the payment.
She says that you gave her a total of $580 during the 3 months that you were living there.
We were there for 3 months, and I did pay the first 2 months. The third month I did not pay.
She says that one of the reasons she started eviction proceedings is because you weren't paying her.
No, that is not true. And
well, then do you have the receipts to show me 2 payments of $466
no,
each?
Your Honor, I do not.
And are you saying that the total they paid you was $580?
That's correct.
And she's also claiming that we owe, or that the rent was $466, which the mortgage payment and the insurance together is, but I was only responsible for $290 of it.
Why?
I didn't pay the insurance. That was not our agreement.
Just a second. Maybe when your mother was living there, it was split differently. But what was your mortgage payment?
$466.02, in fact.
You have proof of that?
Yes,
Shirley?
I do.
Can I see it, please?
Your Honor, actually, the payments were $290 as they were when the mother lived there.
No. No. Who said so?
That's exactly how much they were.
She says that you had an understanding that you were going to pay whatever amount it was to cover her mortgage payment.
She's claiming $466, I believe, but that's not true, Your Honor.
Well, I want to see whether it's $466. She's going to show me.
The mortgage may, with the insurance may indeed be that, but that doesn't mean that was the agreement to pay that.
Well, why should why should she subsidize you? Where can you find a house for $466?
Well, I don't think that's the issue.
No, just a second. Where can you find a house for $466?
You can find them in Fresno. They're available. The people can scoff if they want. You're in Los Angeles. In Fresno, it's not uncommon to find a house for $450. It may not be palatial, but it'll be something that you can live in. And
well, was this a nice house?
Yeah, it is. It is a nice house. It's an older house, 70 or 80 years old, and it's very large.
Well, $466 doesn't seem to me outrageous. So do you work?
Ma'am.
Do you work?
Do I work?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
What kind of work do you do?
Well, I just got a job as a production supervisor with a poultry company.
What were you doing during the time that you were living with Miss Oman in her grandmother's house?
Well, you mean, was I seeking employment or was I working?
No, were you working?
No, at that time I wasn't working. I was seeking employment.
Well, who was supporting you?
I receive unemployment.
How much?
$400 a month.
And were you working?
No.
Why not?
Well, I have a few things that I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic, and during that time I've been seeking therapy and help for myself and for my kids, and that...
Well, you certainly weren't living on $400 a month that he was getting from unemployment insurance. So you must have been subsidized by the state in some way. Is that right?
Yes.
So you were receiving welfare?
Yes.
How much?
A total of $620 a month.
So you were receiving $620 and he was getting $400. That's $1,000 some odd dollars a month, more than enough to pay Grandma's mortgage.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
While she was involved with drugs, involved with alcohol, she had 2 more illegitimate children with 2 other men. Now, Mr. Bradford, you can understand why her grandmother was slightly frustrated.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lavelle Garrett claims her granddaughter, Misty Oman, and Misty's boyfriend, Tom Bradford, did not pay rent, stole, and damaged her property. Misty says her grandmother is trying to control her.
Now, let's get beyond the mortgage. Let's get to this vandalism. You have photographs of the house?
Yes, I do. It's under the green tag there that you have. I also have the color ones for you if you would like. Those are copies.
I'd like to see the originals, please. One of the things, Miss Garrett, that I'm sort of surprised at, well, I'm not faulting you because, you know, you came prepared for this lawsuit, but that you took such care to prepare this lawsuit when your granddaughter was involved. So my sense is that there's something more to this than just this property damage. Did you have a fight with her about sending this young boy to Alaska?
Yes, I did.
When did you have that fight with her?
It was after the eviction.
No, Your Honor, that's not true. It was prior to the eviction.
Okay, I couldn't be mistaken about that, Your Honor. I'm not sure. I mean, there's been an ongoing argument about this child for a long time because of my concern for his welfare.
Did you ever ask your granddaughter if your grandson could come and live with you?
He did live with me for 1 year. He was in my custody for 1 year. At this time, as we speak, he is living with my daughter.
With his maternal grandmother?
Right.
Is that through the state?
No.
By agreement?
By agreement between Mr. Bradford and Miss Oman.
Well, what does he have to do with it?
You tell me.
Nothing is the answer. I'd like you to look at some of these photographs and tell me whether any of this looks familiar to you.
I'd also like to add, Your Honor, this is a very sad day for me to have my granddaughter in court. I have loved this young lady for 24 years, and this is very, very sad for me to have her in court. But I've had it. I'm up to here with her, the men she's been dragging in and out of her children's life.
Your Honor, I'm trying to be polite and be reserved and be respectful of the court. And, you know, I'm just going to take a chance here and speak out. You know, I'm a good human being. I'm not going to be ashamed of the fact that I'm in between jobs. Many people in America are in between jobs right now. And it's nothing to laugh at or to be ashamed of. And I met Misty some months ago in March, in fact, and we developed a relationship. And we had a good relationship. In fact, her suitor, Bob Magretta, hired me to do a number of odd jobs for him while I was in between jobs. And in fact, after the eviction, offered me work and offered us a place to stay in one of his apartments that he rents. And we have a letter here stating that, saying you can come and live in one of my apartments and you can continue to have your job. We're not bad people. And I love her children and I love her. And we're planning to have a future together.
Mr. Bradford, let me stop you, sir. I don't doubt certain of the things that you said to me. You don't fall in love with children after 6 months.
I didn't say I fell in love.
Just a second. You said I love the children. You say you love her and you love her children. You don't love her children. You don't love her children. You may tolerate 2 of them, certainly. You didn't love the third one. The third one was being sent away
thousands of miles away from his siblings, because clearly he was not thriving in your home, and he was probably, in all probability, you don't send the child away unless they are particularly troublesome.
He was going for a 4-week vacation, Your Honor, to see the father who she summons down to help with the child within the last few years. If you ask her, she'll tell you.
Just a second. That's not what it says in the answer.
When the psychiatric, when the doctors at the psychiatric facility recommended that we allow him to try to work out some of the unresolved issues by visiting with his dad.
What do you, Mr. Bradford, what do you think the unresolved issues are, sir?
Well, I'm not a professional in the psychiatric field, but
So you're not a professional, and you've been in this family for 6 months. You've been involved with these 3 children for 6 months. You have 3 children. Were you married once or more than once?
Once.
Once. And the father is, the person who lives in Alaska is the father of all 3 of your children?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. How many children is he the father of?
1.
1. And the other 2 children, do they have the same father?
No, Your Honor.
So I want you to listen to me very carefully, Mr. Bradford. What she said is she's had it up to here with the men that her granddaughter has brought into the lives of her grandchildren. And right now, very simple. I mean, just on its face, Misty acknowledges she had a substance abuse problem. Hopefully she's in recovery. But the bottom line is she has 3 children by 3 different men, only one of whom she was married to. She has a little boy who was clearly suffering as a result of A, his mother's addiction. She was, in all probability, neglectful of the children while she was involved with drugs. That's clear. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out. While she was involved with drugs, involved with alcohol, she had 2 more illegitimate children with 2 other men. Now, Mr. Bradford, you can understand why her grandmother, who has probably been around for all of these tragedies that have gone on for her grandchildren, is slightly frustrated. Well, so don't tell me, sir, that we're good people, and I love all these 3 children, because this lady has heard that before.
Well,
you have to understand the frustration.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Am I guessing at the fact that each of her 3 children have 3 different fathers?
No,
not
you're
guessing at that. And I'm not guessing at the fact, sir, that you don't know one thing that went on in this family from your own personal knowledge for the last 10 years.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Airline technician Lavelle Garrett says her granddaughter, Misty Oman, and her boyfriend, Tom Bradford, owe her for back rent and damaged property. Misty says it all started when she sent her son away.
Now, all I want you to do is look at those photographs and you tell me whether any of that damage to her property looks familiar. Just look at it.
There are some things that I am responsible for, but
like
some
what?
of this, for example, the broken portable closet, no. This screen.
What are you responsible for?
This screen right here, the cat potty.
The what?
The feces, the cat feces that they left in my bathroom floor, plus cat litter in my kitchen with cigarette butts and cat feces in it. The pictures are all here.
You're not suing for that much money. Right now, you're almost to the amount of money from back rent.
This coffee cup right here that's broken on the porch, somebody threw that at the window. And I asked...
Keep going.
Your Honor?
What?
The doorbell was removed because he took it down. It didn't work. He took it down. He was going to repair it. Grandma said that she didn't have the money to repair it, so we just left it on top of the refrigerator. This stuff is all just a mess from moving.
Just a minute. What do you mean it's a mess from moving? Why did you leave a mess when you moved?
We were moving, so we had
Who was supposed to clean it up?
No.
Missy, who was supposed to clean it up? Did you come back and clean up your mess after you moved?
Yes, this stuff we took with us.
I'm talking about the mess after you left. Cat litter, cigarette butts in the cat litter, dirt all over the place. Did you come back and clean that up?
No, my grandmother did not want me to come back to clean it up.
Did you? You mean you called your grandmother and said, I left the house a mess, I want to come back just for a day just to clean up the mess?
No, my grandmother made it very clear, do not come back.
The sheriffs escorted her out, and when she forgot 1 or 2 items inside the place in her, hasty exodus from the residence, they wouldn't even let her back in to get those items, okay? And so, when a sheriff's there and the kids are all on the porch crying, and she's trying to get her stuff and get out. I'm not making her out to be an angel, but she's a good person, Your Honor, and I love her. And you see her sister over there crying, and I'll tell you why she's crying. Because you're making her out to, you're guessing, and I respect your position.
I'm not guessing, Mr.
No, that's
Bradford.
exactly what you're doing.
Listen,
That's exactly
I'm not
what you're
guessing,
doing.
sir. Am I guessing at the fact that Miss Oman has 3 children? Am I guessing?
That part you're not.
Am I guessing at the fact that each of her 3 children have 3 different fathers?
No,
not
you're
guessing
not.
at that. I'm not guessing at the fact that she was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I'm not guessing at that.
No, ma'am, you're not.
I'm not guessing at the fact that you've been involved in this family for less than a year. I'm not guessing at that.
No, you're not.
And I'm not guessing at the fact, sir, that you don't know one thing that went on in this family from your own personal knowledge for the last 10 years.
Well,
you don't
sure
know
I
that.
do.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Miss Garrett, listen to me. Don't rent them an apartment anymore. I don't know if he's going to be long-term or short-term, whether he's going to be as long-term as the other 3 guys that were in your granddaughter's life. I haven't a clue. You've sued for very little money, slightly over $1,100. They owe you at least $800 in rent. That's your lawsuit. $1,184 is what your lawsuit was for. There is, based upon what I've seen, the mess alone in that apartment, as far as I'm concerned, takes at least $300 to clean up that kind of disaster. So, you tell me that this was a painful thing for you to do.
Yes, it is.
I not only think it's painful, I'm not so sure that I would have done it. I would have just said, from now on, I'm not going to bail my granddaughter out, and I would have eaten the $1,100. You chose not to do that, and I can't fault you for not saying, I'm going to chalk it up and write, from now on, they're on their own. It's sad that you brought her to court. She owes you the money. She owes you the money for rent, and she owes you the money for cleaning up the mess that she and her boyfriend left in your house.